Hi, this is Cole Silver, and welcome to another edition of the Rain Dancing Expert Audio Series. You know, there are few people in the world who have more experience in professional services marketing as does today's guest. We are extremely fortunate to have him with us. Bruce Marcus is the author of 12 books, including Competing for Clients, The Complete Guide to Marketing Professional Services, and Client at the Core, as well as numerous articles, studies, and position papers on business, finance, and marketing. He's been a speechwriter for many of the Fortune 500 companies and national political figures, including Robert Kennedy and Senator Jacob Javits, and was the author of a major report for President Carter. His clients have included most of the big five accounting firms, major law firms, and some of the biggest investment banks. Bruce was also an adjunct professor at Fordham Graduate School of Business Administration, where he taught the first course on professional services marketing ever taught in the United States in an MBA program. Welcome, Bruce. Thank you so much for being here today.
A pleasure, a pleasure.
So, Bruce, what is positioning and how can it differentiate a law firm in the marketplace today?
Okay, we're really talking about two different things. Positioning is one thing. Differentiation is one of the results of positioning. Positioning is not just projecting what you want people to think about you. That never works. It's one of the reasons why I rail against the word image, because the word image seems to imply that if you don't like the way you're perceived, you can change the perception by manipulating symbols, which of course is not true. Positioning starts with understanding your marketplace and the needs of your marketplace by demonstrating that you do understand these needs, and by demonstrating that you can serve these needs, and making that concept the central core of your marketing. My favorite example of positioning goes all the way back to the war room of the first Clinton administration, where James Carville had a sign up on the wall saying, "It's the economy, stupid," which is something that I guess everybody knows about. What that meant was the perception, backed up by research, of the political committee as being the foremost concern of the electorate. It said that everything they wrote or spoke had to address one way or the other that position. Now, if you translate that into law firm marketing, what you get is a direct process of addressing the needs of the marketplace, and it then becomes the best way that you can demonstrate your capabilities.
Is it client-driven or is it issue-driven?
It's always client-driven. You can't impose the issue. You've got to stem from the client. Another example is that I've often used goes back to the early days of nylon, when DuPont invented a substance called nylon. They couldn't very well ask, "Would you be interested in a hose that was sheer or as beautiful as silk hose, but wore like iron and didn't cost any more?" Actually, that was positioning before the word was ever used. They did three things. They defined consumer expectations. They figured out how to meet those expectations with a product that nobody had ever heard of, and then they asked themselves, what fact or value can we communicate to the market that would address those expectations and concerns? Now, I argue that you can run a marketing program without that kind of position. It goes deeper. It goes deeper because in most marketing programs that do not have positions, you are struggling to put out news about yourself. You're talking about yourself, and you in law firm marketing, with the limitations on what you can say and do, there isn't much you can say that differentiates yourself. What you do with a position is you're focusing on the specific needs of a specific group of clients. And the more specific you get to the group of clients, the better the position. Now, differentiation is another thing. With law firm marketing, you can't say, we write better briefs, or we're better litigators because we're better silver-tongued devils. You really can't substantially differentiate yourself from your competitors in the same way that a cigar manufacturer can. Our cigars are better than their cigars. You can't say that. So what you do is, by working with a position, by understanding the needs of the market, by demonstrating your ability to serve those needs, you are standing out as a firm that displays its capabilities to deal with the market. And therein lies the differentiation.
So it's connected.
It's connected.
So how do you do that, Bruce, in, say, a firm or organization that, has, hundreds or possibly thousands of associates and partners, and they're serving all different markets? Do you have to have different marketing messages and positionings for your different practice groups?
Yes, you do, as a matter of fact. And I mean, just look at the product marketers who face a somewhat different marketing structure than we do. But yes, you have to have a different position for each market. You can have an overall position. For example, a business-oriented firm. For example, I just wrote a program, not for a law firm, but for a personal finance firm, in which we decided that the position is protection, preservation, and growth, and tailored that message differently for each market it served, for retirees, for widows, and so on and so forth. The point is, yeah, you can do a marketing program without positioning, but I compare that to cutting a cheap steak with a dull knife. It's too hard work to do. With a position, you are getting right to the heart of the client's needs. There's a problem here, and that is the short and almost non-existent tradition of marketing for law firms. And so most law firm marketing functions on a mythology. It's the same kind of mythology that says publicity is free advertising, which of course it isn't. I'm doing a paper now on advertising, in which I look at some of the ads that are beginning to proliferate from law firms. Some of them are brilliant because they understand positioning. One of my favorite is the Wells firm, which illustrates an individual, a real partner or associate in the firm, and talks about her or his experience with Sarbanes-Oxley. That says more about the firm than any boast you can make. You cannot market law firms by boasting. You have to demonstrate specific capability. By the same token, it's very difficult to market an entire law firm. It's done a great deal in advertising. I don't think it works. Although, let me say parenthetically that in advertising, everything works to a degree, but you can't You can't compete. My other phone's ringing. It's all right. She'll get it. You can't compete with somebody who does exactly the same thing as you do, unless you can demonstrate individual capabilities.
Gotcha. Tom Friedman came out with the book, about the flat world, and you're now seeing a lot of large law firms outsource.
Excuse me just a minute.
Sure.
I'm on the phone. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tom Friedman. Flat Earth.
We're talking about Tom Friedman's book about the flat world, and there was a recent article in the ABA Journal about companies outsourcing legal work to India and other places.
Uh-huh.
How does the law firm, prevent being commoditized by the outsourcing phenomenon, as well as other things that are going on a global basis today?
There are in the practice of law, there are commodities. There's will writing, there's certain kinds of contract writing, and so on and so on. But that's not what you're selling. You're selling an expertise. How it's done is nice to explain, but it's irrelevant in terms of the mechanics. What is relevant is the thoughtfulness that goes behind each client matter. That's what you're selling. That's where your position is. That's where your marketing program is.
Now, you've been teaching marketing professional services for a long time. Are law firms finally getting it, or are they still living in the old world of the way to make money is either to fire the people who aren't bringing in the business or continue to increase the attorney's fees to existing clients?
That is the bane of the existence of professional services marketers. The fact that there still exist law firms that don't get it. On the other hand, there are law firms that do get it. There are law firms that understand the nature of marketing, that understand how to project their capabilities. I was talking to a law firm recently, a local law firm that is completely stuck in the past. They are not what David Maister calls a one-firm firm. They're a collection of individuals, and they like it that way. Unfortunately, they're getting business. Now, the problem with that sort of thing is they are not competing effectively, which is one of the problems that I think exists is behind so many of the mergers. When you've got a collection of lawyers, each of whom is on his own, each of whom is making a living, it's very hard to say you're not looking at the future of the profession and your role in it. And one day you're going to wake up and learn it the hard way. Now, when we talk about that kind of thinking, you're talking about a longer time frame than any of us would like, but it's true. On the other hand, you have some powerful marketers. Part of the problem is that there is no long-term tradition of marketing in the legal profession. We are not that far away from the golf course.
Does that mean that we use the golf course as our sole method of marketing?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask the old-time lawyers how they got business, they did it on the golf course, they did it with networking. They never even thought in terms of advertising or public relations. If you talk about marketing over at, say, Xerox or AT&T, they know what it is there. They know, as Peter Drucker has pointed out, that the business they're really in is the customer getting business. Lawyers are really in the client getting business. I know this is anathema to the people who think of being lawyers is some kind of exalted thing, and that happens because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Gee, it's a beautiful day to sue somebody." You wait till somebody, what a great day to write a contract. You have to wait till somebody needs you. And that's one of the distinctive differences between marketing and professional services. But if you talk to the production people, for example, at IBM, they know that the business they're in is getting a customer, and the way they do it is that they fill the channels that are opened by marketing with a product, but they are in a customer-getting business. Lawyers have no tradition of thinking in terms of the client-getting business. And so you've got...
So how do you change that if you're running a firm? Do you train them? Do you incent them? I mean, how do you change the paradigm since, the youngest or mid-level associates are not going to get the business on the golf course?
You wake up. You wake up and see what's happening. If you look at a corporate executive, he has come up the hard way. He can start in a mailroom, or he can come in with an MBA. But at every step of the way, he learns about the process of management. He learns about what's involved in leading that process. Who becomes the managing partner of a law firm? People who brought in the most clients, the rainmaker. People who have the most friends among the partners. Where is the management training to run an organization the size of today's law firms? Even the mid-sized law firm has a crisis in management. Many of them recognize it and seek answers from professionals. This is where people like Jerry Riskin and Patrick McKenna have made such a vast contribution to the profession by bringing these lawyers and these law firm managers into the 21st century. Now, things are changing constantly. If you look back on the early days of marketing, I go back to the time when lawyers used to say, "Marketing, oh yeah, we got a girl down the hall who does that." They had no idea. Today, there are still law firms who have marketers who have no credibility within their own firms. They are told what to do, and what they're told to do is too often not worth the trouble. I know of one law firm that built its whole marketing program on running parties, cocktail parties. And if you ask a question like, do you get clients out of it? They say, oh, yeah, at the last one we got 4 clients. How big were they? And the answer is, truth told, the return on the investment for that cocktail party wasn't worth the price of the ice cubes. At the same time, you have a growing number of individuals. I mean, look what we have today with most of the major law firms. We have professional managers. We have MBAs who are not lawyers, or MBA types, or accountants in some cases, who are brought in from accounting firms or elsewhere, who do a magnificent job, many of them, in running a law firm. And that's what makes it work. But unless you get a very talented guy who becomes, or a woman who becomes a managing partner, you're going to have anachronisms all over the place. That's why parenthetically, the turnover in marketing directors is ridiculous. It's something like on an average every 2 years.
Why is that, Bruce? Because lawyers have no patience?
Pardon?
Lawyers have no patience? The managing partners have no patience?
No. It's not just patience. They don't. There are two things. They don't understand, and the profession of marketing is too often rooted in the mechanics of marketing and not the strategy. Now you got a problem there. I noticed early in my career that in professional firms, accounting and law, there is no hospitality in the firm for a non-accountant or a non-lawyer. And so it's an uphill battle. In some of the early meetings of law firm marketers and accounting firm marketers, the big cry was, how do I become a partner? Well, you can't. And that's part of the problem. I think the partnership structure is an anachronism to begin with. I think that the hourly billing thing is one of those traditions that's going to change. I got to tell you, I predicted some of these things in the 1980s, and everybody thought I was crazy. But isn't that what's happening today? Value billing. Of course, it's had a lot of help from a lot of people. Partnership structures that are beginning to seep over into a corporate type thing. When I told a lawyer client once that the partnership structure was an anachronism, he said, well, what's going to replace it? And my answer is, I don't know, but you guys are very smart. As the clients demand a different kind of service, you'll figure it out.
So, if you've made prior predictions that have come true, I'm gonna go on a limb here and ask you to make some predictions for the next 10 or 20 years. Will law firms continue to look more like businesses, be run like businesses, and law firms that get the marketing imperative will be the ones that really excel?
Yes, that's exactly it. I get asked a lot about the future of the legal profession, and how do I know? I'm not a magician. I do know this. You can't predict the future of the profession. What you can do is look at some of the elements that go into the natural change. I think the biggest problem to be faced in the future of the profession is law firm governance and management. You look at, for example, at all these mergers. It sounds like swell. We're just like those guys down on Wall Street. Look at us, we're merging. The question is, how are these giant firms, these 1,000-partner law firms, and smaller as well as larger, going to be managed? And until we solve that problem, we're not going to know our future. Some of the questions that you have to ask is, what skills do we need to protect our territory? Does our firm need to redefine itself to better address the needs of our market? And remember, Columbia University Graduate Business School had an ad a couple months ago in which they made a point of saying, your market has changed. The world has changed. Come learn how to change with it. Well, lawyers are going to have to learn that. Where are they going to get the capital to continue to grow? How well trained and management skilled are our leaders? Are our marketing professionals really professional, or are they just party planners who know what was done yesterday and are unwilling or unable to find better ways today? The only way you can look to the future is to ask those questions and come up with the answers. And then,
Well, it sounds like law firms can, they follow your advice and ask those questions. They can create their own future.
that's
Bruce,
exactly the point.
Bruce, this has been just highly informative and phenomenal. How can people get a hold of you?
Okay. Online, of course, there's the Marcus Letter at www.marcusletter.com. My email is marcus@marcusletter.com. My phone is 203-315-1160. That's the way to do it.
Bruce, thank you so much for being here today.
Pleasure. I hope I was helpful.
This has been another edition of the Rain Dancing Expert Audio Series brought to you by Cole Silver of FindCareerSuccess.com. Until next time.